Hi there, this is Mrs. Gifford, and this is our math lesson 6.6. Now, before I get started with the math, I wanted to shake things up a little bit and add a little fun to this. So, I'm going to tell you the first half of a joke right now, and then somewhere in the video, I'm going to give you the second half of the joke. Now, it won't be right at the end, so you can't just skip to the end and see the answer, but you'll just have to watch the whole video to find what the answer is to this joke. Okay? So here's the first half. What do you call a dinosaur who is sleeping? Okay? All right. So watch this video if you want to know the answer to that question. All right. So the first question that we are going to be looking at today has a little bit of a trick in it. So I want you to think to yourself about what you notice, what kind of trick could be included in this math problem as I read it, okay? So it says, Emma solved 9 math problems and answered 7 reading questions. Her sister solved 8 math problems. How many math problems did they solve in all? Okay, so think about that for a second. What is tricky about that question? Pause the video if you need to, if you need more time to think. All right, so the reason this question is a little bit tricky is because it is an extra information type problem. So, why do you think it's called an extra information type problem? Because it has some additional information that we won't need in order to solve the problem that it's asking. So, this is where our reading and comprehension skills are going to come in really handy. So, as we're reading this, I want you to think to yourself, what is this question really asking? So, again, Emma solved 9 math problems and answered 7 reading questions. Her sister solved 8 math problems. How many math problems did they solve in all? Okay, so what does this question ask us? What does it want to know? It wants us to solve how many math problems they solved in all. Now, do you think this is a addition word problem, subtraction, multiplication, or division? And how do you know? Okay, I'm going to look for those keywords. That's going to tell me. I'm going to look for those. What do you think they are? These words right here, in all, those give me a hint. Those make it sound like this is probably an addition problem. So let's think. If we used addition, would we be able to find out how many math problems they solved in all? Yeah. So then if we're wanting to know how many math problems, what is the extra information included in this problem that we don't need? What do you think? Pause the video if you need to look more closely until you have an answer. All right, so the extra information in this word problem would be these 7 reading questions. Does it ask anything in our question about reading questions? No, it just wants to know how many math problems are solved in all. So when you're doing this on your own, you can simply just cross out the information that you don't need. Because it's extra, we're not even going to worry about it. So we're just going to cross out and answered 7 reading questions. Because that's just extra information that we don't need. So now we know that Emma solved 9 math problems. And then if we add the number that her sister solved, which was 8 math problems, then we figure out 9 plus 8 equals 17. They solved 17 math problems in all. Now, there's another way that the math book is going to try to trick you, okay? But you're not going to be able to get tricked. Apparently, the math book didn't hear that April Fool's Day was last week on the 1st, so it's still trying to trick us. But with this knowledge that we're going to go over together, you're not going to be able to be tricked, okay? All right, so the second way that the book is going to try to trick you goes a little something like this. So I'm going to read this, and I want you to think about what's tricky about this word problem. Okay? All right, so this one says, Samuel had 16 new horseshoes in the shed yesterday. Today, he put a new set of horseshoes on his horse, Betsy. How many horseshoes are left in the shed? So I'll give you a second to think about it. What is tricky about this problem? Pause the video if you need to. So what's tricky about this? First, I want you to think about what kind of problem this is going to be. How are we going to solve it? Is it going to be an addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? And how do you know? Okay, so I'm going to look through my problem here, and I'm going to try to figure out whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So there are some clue words that give me a hint. These words here, where it says how many are left, that makes me think of subtraction. So this seems like a subtraction problem to me. And whenever we start with a subtraction problem, we're starting with the total number that they have, right? So he has 16 horseshoes to start with, and then he puts some on his horse. So I know that I'm going to start with 16, and then he's going to put some on his horse, so minus how many? Now, do you see a number in this word problem to tell you how many horseshoes he put on his horse? I don't. Yeah, it just says he put a new set of horseshoes on his horse, Betsy. But let me ask you another question. How many legs do horses have? 4, right? So, how many horseshoes would they need? They would need 4, one for each leg. Just like we need 2 shoes for each of our legs, right? Because we've got two legs, 2 feet, we need 2 shoes. Horses have 4 legs, so they need 4 shoes. So then a new set of horseshoes would be how many? It would be 4. So even though it doesn't say the number 4 in this problem, we can use our knowledge of horses to figure out how many horseshoes he put on his horse. So the set of horseshoes would be 4 horseshoes. So then we can solve 16 minus 4 equals what? 12. So that means that there are 12 horseshoes left in the shed. All right, now just to help you out a little bit, these are some common words that you might run across in these hidden information word problems like the one that we just did. So if you see something that says a week, the hidden information might be the 7 days. So even though it says a week, it still means 7 days. A quarter is 25 pennies or cents. A dime is 10 pennies or cents. A nickel is 5 pennies or 5 cents. A year usually has 365 days. I only say usually because, as some of you might know, there are these things called leap years. We're actually in one this year where it has 366 days, but usually it has 365. So if you see a problem that says a year, just assume that it means that there's 365 days. And then a dozen. A dozen always equals 12. So whether they're talking about a dozen eggs or a dozen cookies or a dozen muffins or a dozen donuts, it always means 12. Okay, so those are some helpful values for you. So if you need to look back at this, that should help you. All right, let's go over one last question together. So as I'm reading this question, I again want you to think about what makes this question a little bit tricky, okay? So this one says, Sarah bought 8 bananas at the fruit market. She put them in a bowl with some oranges. How many pieces of fruit are in the bowl? Okay, so what's tricky about this question? I want you to think about it. Pause this question pause the video if you don't have an answer yet. So what is tricky about this question? Is it like the last one where it had hidden information? What do we think? So first, it might be helpful to determine whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So what words from here give us clues as to what kind of operation we'll be using? So what's it asking us? It says, how many pieces of fruit are in the bowl? It sure sounds like it's asking for a total, like the total number of fruit that's in the bowl, right? And when a question's asking for a total or how many there are in all, that is an addition problem, right? So this is going to be addition. So what are we adding? So we're adding, we know that there's 8 bananas. That's a piece of fruit that's in the bowl, right? So I can start with my 8 bananas plus, it also says that she put oranges in the bowl. So I need to add however many oranges she put in the bowl. But does this problem tell us how many oranges are in the bowl? It doesn't, does it? So for these kinds of problems, what I would do, and I encourage you to do this as well, is circle the part of the problem that is tricky, that doesn't give us enough information, right? So she put them in a bowl with some oranges. Now, is some a specific number like a dozen is? No, a dozen is always 12. So whenever you hear dozen, you know that it's 12. But some could be 3, it could be 10, it could be 100. We don't know. So some doesn't have a specific value. So we can't figure out how many pieces of fruit are in that bowl until we know how many oranges are there. We don't have the bowl in front of us to be able to count all the pieces of fruit. So with the information that we have, we can't solve this problem. So instead of solving for it, we are actually going to answer with the information that we would need. So instead of giving a number, we're going to say something like, we need to know how many oranges are in the bowl. So we need to know how many oranges are in the bowl. Otherwise, we can't solve this problem. So this is actually called a not enough information word problem because it doesn't give us enough information to solve it. Now, I think you've all been very patient, and I think you're probably wondering, whatever happened to that joke from the beginning of the video? Well, I'll give you the answer now. So, just to remind you, the question was, what do you call a dinosaur that is sleeping? The answer is a dino snore. All right, I hope you like that joke. Stick around. We have a couple of other things to talk about right after this. All right, just as a quick review, we talked about 3 different types of word problems today. Ones with extra information, ones with hidden information, and ones with not enough information. So remember, for extra information, to be thinking to yourself, what is this problem really asking me? And is there information that I don't really need? And remember to just cross that information out and don't even pay attention to it. For hidden information, make sure that you are thinking about, are there words that mean numbers such as a dozen, or does it give me something like a year where I know that there's 365 days in a year? So be looking, you're gonna have to put on your detective hat to look for that hidden information in that one. And then for not enough information, if it says something vague like some or many more or did something like that, and there's just no way that you can solve it, think about what information could they give me in order to actually solve this problem, and then just write that down. All right, good luck with your assignment.